Okay, we start off with a fat quarter that has been folded in half and then in half again, and then is placed on the cutting mat. And if you look, you can see how to line it up with your mat on 14. Place your ruler on 14 and then line it up with the 7. So that's there. And you would cut and you would get your first angle. Once you've got your first angle, like that, you then know to turn your ruler around and to cut the other side. And you'll end up, because it's folded, you'll end up with 4 triangles all in one go. But then, if you look, if we flip that over, we can then cut a line here, and then we can repeat by cutting a line there, like so, and then we can repeat by cutting another line there, like that, and we can do one last triangle by cutting it there, like that, and you'll end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles. Now you'll end up with 5 triangles cut, but because you've got 4 layers, you'll end up with 5, 10, 15, 20 triangles, which will give you a total of 10 flags. So it's fibre side down, and I'm just going to ensure that it's pressed on. And now what I can do is cut those out, and I'm going to repeat that on the yellow fabric. And I'm also going to iron on some Bonder web onto another contrasting fabric to make the centre of the daisy, these parts here. I've cut these all out, all the daisies out in various colours, and then what you do is you peel the paper off the back of the Bonder web, and you can feel it's slightly plasticky in texture. You then place that where you want it to go, and you repeat that with the centre. So you take the paper off and you place that like that. As you can see, I've done that to each of these in turn, and you can put a cloth on them if you like, or I'm quite happy just to iron them. And you will find that they should be stuck down, ready for sewing. And I would repeat with the orange ones. I'm now ready to start free motion embroidery on my sewing machine, and I've already converted it, so I've lowered my dog teeth. If you haven't got that mechanism that will lower, you can put a plastic plate that goes across, and it's called a darning plate, and you'll find that in your manual information. I've also removed the whole section of the foot, so not just the lower section but the whole section of the main foot, and I've replaced it. If you have a look, it's hooked round and it's got an arm on it, and it's, believe it or not, it's the needle bar that operates. You can see then, I'll turn it round here, you'll see it's the needle bar, this bit here, that operates this lever that allows the foot to go up and down. Okay, open that back there so I can actually show you the next step, which is to actually free motion embroidery. Now I've found that this fabric I'm using is stiff enough not to warrant having any backing or a ring or anything, but that depends on the fabric you've chosen. The next step is you lower the needle into the fabric and you turn the handle balance wheel towards you to bring up the bobbin thread. If it doesn't work first time, you might need to lower the foot and try again. And you can see this time it's worked. And I'm going to grab, I've pulled it towards me, I've grabbed the thread from underneath, that's the bobbin thread, which is white in this case, and then I can put the needle back down. It's a good idea to do a few stitches and then trim that off. And then all you do, you just move the fabric around your design. And you can repeat. When you're finished, you stop, you lift your needle up, and you can lift the foot up. By lifting the foot up, it releases the thread. You can pull that out of the way, and you can go straight on to the next one. If your previous flag is getting in the way, what you can do is just cut it loose and carry on. Just going to repeat that one more time just to show you. So lift the foot up and the needle up, pull the flag out of the way and move on to the next one. And it saves me having to restart every time. But must remember to lower the needle back down and the foot back down, and we can continue. And I will do the rest of these flags so I can show you the next stage. I've completed all the flags now and they're all just sort of joined together. So what I'm going to do next is to just cut them apart, and then I'm ready for the next stage. The next stage is I want to cover up the flag. I'm going to actually sew the flag right sides together. So I'm just going to place the flags right sides together, and I do that with all the flags. So I've got them all here near me. The next stage is I'm ready for sewing. I have put my dog teeth back up, they're now functioning. I've put my original foot back up, and I've put the same top and bottom threads, and I've just chosen to use cream, but you could use the colours that match your flags. Now that the flags are ready, because they're right sides together and the machine is threaded, I can now begin to sew them together. The machine is set on straight stitch, and I'm placing the first flag underneath, and I'm going to sew just the long edges. I'm going to leave the top, the short top edge open. So I'm going to start off, in this case I've got a little knot stitch, and it will just sew on the spot. And then I'm going to go forwards, and you'll notice I've got the edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric. When I get to the point, I'm going to stop with the needle down. If I'm not quite there, I can bring the needle up and bring the needle down, and then I should be able to pivot. If it still doesn't look right, we can go back, and we can do that again, and then we can pivot. And then it's going to come up the other long edge. Once I've got to the bottom, I can use my knot stitch, or if I haven't got a knot stitch, I can use back stitch, and I would probably just do 3 back stitches, and that would be enough. Then I could actually line up my next piece of fabric, and you need to be aware that it needs to be lined up like that, because it will feed straight through onto the next flag. So I'm going to start it again, and it will feed straight through. And stop when I'm onto the new flag because I want to do a knot again. So I'm going to press my knot stitch, and then I can go to the corner, the very bottom corner as before. So again, I'm sewing that long edge, and I'm going to stop on the corner. If I don't think I'm quite there, I can do one more stitch, and I can change direction and do the other long edge. When I get to the bottom of the long edge, I leave the short edge open and do a knot stitch at the end. And just to go through that bit again, with joining the next flag on, you line it up so you actually do have what looks like a very odd V. I'll bring it back around here to show you, and that's how we're lining it up, back there. And I'll just sew onto the next flag. So sewing it on the gap, now I'm there, I can now do the knot, and I can sew to the bottom edge as before, and this will be repeated with all the flags. So I shall pause the video now. Right, I've now got a whole string of these flags, and I'm going to have to cut them apart. Once I've cut them apart, as you can see from the debris around me, I'm also cutting off the point so it will turn through better. And what we do is you find the opening and you just turn it through, and you're going to poke it with a pokey tool of some sort. I tend to use my scissors. Having said that, you can easily cut your work, and then it should come out like that. Once you've got enough of those, we can then put them onto the tape. Okay, as you can see, I've turned them through, and I've got like what I call little ears here. So I'm just going to cut those off like that on both sides, because otherwise they're going to prevent it fitting into the bias binding. And I do that with all of them. The orange one here. Now I've decided to alternate my flags as I go. So what I'm going to do, I've got my bias tape here, as you can see. I'm going to fold it in half and give it a bit of a press like that. I'm going to turn the end in a little bit, and I'm actually going to start sewing from here, because then it gives me a nice little loop for it to hang up. Then I'm going to allow a distance. Now that you can measure it. I tend to use the flag as a measurement, and I place the flag in between that V there like that, and I pin it, and I make sure I pinned it both ends, ensuring that the top of the flag is encased in the bias binding like that. I then measure the distance. Now I've actually been using the spots on my tablecloth, but you can use a tape measure, and I put the next flag in place like that, and pin it in exactly the same way, and I'd repeat this the whole length of the bunting of the bias tape. If you get like a ripple like that, you might need to unpin and start again, or just open it up, lie it flat, bring the tape over and pin. There we go, ready for machining once I've got all the other flags on. Right, I'm now ready to start sewing along the bias tape and holding those flags in place. I've just converted my sewing machine to a fancy stitch. You could use straight stitch, so it's harder to catch the flags that way. I've discovered. I found that if you do a fancy stitch, it could be a zigzag. I've chosen to use a nice heart stitch on my silver machine, and I'm now going to start sewing. So you'll notice I actually turned that end and the design starting from that point. And I'm sewing the tape closed as I lead up to my first flag. And what I'm going to do is stop with my needle down to remove the pin, and then I'll carry on. I've already finished sewing the flag here. I'm just carrying along and sewing towards the end, but I've actually already folded up the edge to hang up, and I'm just going to come to that point and finish there. Just do one more just to ensure it's secure. And then you can see that I've got a loop on the end for hanging up. And pull it out and cut it off. And we are now ready to hang it up. And that's it all done.